لڑکوں اور لڑکیوں کے رشتوں کے معاملات اور پھر رشتوں کے بعد عائلی مسائل، یہ ایسے معاملات ہیں جو گھروں میں پریشانی اور بے چینی کا باعث بنتے رہتے ہیں۔ شادیوں کے بعد عائلی مسائل ہیں، وہ صرف خاوند بیوی کے لیے مسئلہ نہیں ہوتا ہے، بلکہ دونوں طرف کے والدین کے لیے بھی پریشانی کا باعث ہوتے ہیں۔ اور صرف اتنا ہی نہیں، بلکہ اگر اولاد ہو گئی ہے تو اولاد میں بھی بے چینی پیدا کر رہے ہوتے ہیں۔ اور بعض اوقات اولاد اس وجہ سے دینی اور دنیاوی دونوں لحاظ سے بگڑ رہی ہوتی ہے، اور ماں باپ اور خاندان کے لیے مزید پریشانیاں پیدا کرتی ہے۔ گویا پریشانیوں کا ایک سلسلہ شروع ہو جاتا ہے۔ تقریباً روزانہ میری ڈاک میں ایسے معاملات آتے ہیں یا زبانی ملاقات میں لوگ اپنے مسائل کو ذکر کرتے ہیں۔ ایک طرف لڑکیوں کے رشتوں کا مسئلہ ہے، پڑھائی کو عذر بنا کر اصل عمر میں رشتے نہیں کیے جاتے جب لڑکی کی رشتے کی عمر ہوتی ہے کہ پڑھ رہی ہے ابھی، اور جب رشتے ہو جائیں بڑی عمر میں، جب ذرا بڑی ہوتی ہیں، پڑھ لکھ جاتی ہیں، رشتے ہو جاتے ہیں، تو پھر انڈرسٹینڈنگ کا نہ ہونے کا جواز بنا کر رشتوں میں دوریاں پیدا ہوتی ہیں، اس میں دراڑیں پیدا ہوتی ہیں۔ پھر بعض لڑکیوں کی یہ بھی باتیں دیکھنے میں آئی ہیں کہ سہیلیاں اور دوست غلط طور پر ایسے خیالات ان کے دلوں میں پیدا کرتی ہیں کہ تمہارے بڑے حقوق ہیں ان ملکوں میں تمہیں
They advise them negatively that you have your rights in this country and you should ask and demand your rights from your husband. If your husband does not accept your demands, and most of the time the husbands will not accept each and every demand that comes from the wife. And what I have observed, that some mothers also, they get involved and the trust between the family breaks down, and they have doubts and they cannot trust their fathers-in-law or their mothers-in-law once they get involved. Of course, I have so many relationships. People marry from Pakistan, they marry from India with children born here in UK or elsewhere in Europe. But there is a lot of problems within these relationships. But what I find surprising is that sometimes before even they get here after marriage, they dissolve the marriages. And this condition is not only with the girls, but are doing even sometimes much worse. I can even say that I think if we compare the numbers, it's the boys who are acting in this way. Well, the fact remains that the root is not saying the truth from both sides, from the girls and from the boys' side, and which is a very pertinent, which is a very important point in marriage as far as marriage is concerned. We're admonished to be truthful contract, but sometimes truth and the whole truth. Sometimes some girls are forced to marry, or some boys are forced to. They think that maybe everything will become okay. But sometimes there is no understanding between some marriages. Well, we have a conflict of interests, but because some children, they cannot refuse, they cannot deny in front of their parents, then they just go ahead and carry on with these marriages. They marry those in the West, and after marriage, once they are married, then they have problems. And after marriage, the father-in-laws, the mother-in-laws who happily married these children, then they start having problems for these marriages. My point here is that whether it is the married couple or the parents, the in-laws, I think this is a collective problem which is caused section of people. Sometimes it's the girls who are in the wrong. Sometimes mistakes come from the girls. Like I've already said, the family problems and family issues cause a lot of distress for the girls who are married to these families. Sometimes, after a long period of time after marriage, the boy decides to leave this marriage, and they say, I don't want to live with you, I'm deciding to marry. And sometimes the girl comes complaining that I've had a lot of problems from this gentleman and I'm asking for divorce. And that happens. And I should tell you that when we compare the divorce or the asking coming, the demand coming from girls is much more compared to those demands coming from the men. And this affects the children born from these parents who decide to divorce. Well, it is evident that after breaking up, whether the children stay with the mother or with the fathers, it has been proven these children, they are always affected compared to other children who are living with parents who are still together. This is a very painful situation. Now, the complaints come and everybody, the blame game starts. The husband will be blaming the wife and the wife will be blaming the husband. Some say that because people come and then they look for careers in the Western countries, this affects the marriages. There's also another reason, which is mostly given, that they prefer living with their children than living alone with their husbands or wives. Or sometimes they complain that the religious level, the spiritual level is very low for some of the marriages that break up. Sometimes their claims are that you should have your own house, which is your personal house. You should have a separate residence. Sometimes the complaints which come to me are that the parents get involved in the marital affairs. But like I've already said, it is down to truthfulness and being straightforward, which is very important as far as marriage is concerned. Likewise, girls, they are affected sometimes and they keep certain attitudes for their husbands and their relatives. For example, the relatives of the boy, when they visit, they will be always praising their boy, the boy will always be the good ones. And all this is done to prove that the boy is really good. For example, they give petty reasons that maybe the girl is not tall enough, she's not white enough, she's not educated enough. Even sometimes if she's not having a job, they'll be complaining she's not doing any job and our boy is the one who is working. These are the complaints that come to me. As far as man and wife is concerned, in that relationship, they are much influenced by the parents, either of the boy's side or the girl's side. I get complaints that some boys don't carry out their duties, their marital duties properly. Here, under the influence of the society, boys will be about 25 or 26 years old, but they'll consider themselves to be still young, and they're not at the age of marriage. And this is a disease within our societies, the Asian societies, Pakistanis or Asian societies in general. And if you think you are young, you are still too young, then why should you marry? Well, Huzur says these complaints continue, and this is a series of complaints and then problems which carry on. It also happens that after a long period of time, spending a long time together, then the boys grow up, and when you hear the complaints, these are childish complaints that happen between married couples. And sometimes you wonder why such a thing can happen. If you consider the reason why these marriages suffer a dead end, why they break up, it is simply because simple lack of knowledge, disinterest in religion, and if you are seeking for a solution for these problems, then we should seek the solution through religion, through our faith. We always claim and pledge that we shall give precedence to our faith, to our religion, above all other worldly affairs. Then now we have to turn to the Holy Quran, to the Hadith, and the practice of the Holy Prophet Muhammad ﷺ as a solution to our problems. We have accepted Islam. We have submitted ourselves to the Holy Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, and we have also accepted the founder of the Ahmadiyya community, the Prince Messiah ﷺ, who has put a demand upon each and every one of us, each and every one of his followers, to give precedence to his faith above all other worldly affairs. We pledge and we make this claim, but when it comes to practice, then we totally forget this pledge. During marriages, we forget our status. For marriages, before we enter into this contract, we have guidelines given by the Holy Prophet ﷺ that when you are marrying, choose someone who is devoted, who is serving, who loves religion. If somebody is blessed with both the service to religion and also has some gains on the worldly side, then this is a bonus. But if we really claim, and we are true in our claim, that we shall give precedence to our faith, to our religion over all other worldly affairs, then we shouldn't have any problems whatsoever. we should remember the guidance given by the Holy Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, which he put forward for us, and regarding which Hazrat Abu Huraira radiallahu ta'ala anhu says that the Holy Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam said that we marry, or someone should marry, for 4 reasons: for his or her wealth, because of his or her family, because of his or her beauty, and because of his or her faith. But you should give preference to faith, and by doing so, Allah will make you prosper. Now, if the boy before marrying, they put these 4 points in consideration, and also the woman's side, they put this into consideration, and if we give priority to religion and faith, then all these complaints which come from the boys, and which comes from the girls, and which come from the wider families, would not happen. And there is no way this can happen if we follow the teaching of the Holy Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Any boy who will be looking for someone who is faithful, who is religious, and any girl who will be seeking for a boy who is religious and faithful, and this will definitely help this marriage to help each other. And if such boys or girls get a chance to marry each other, then you can't have problems within these families, within such families, because there will be a source of help for each other. They will both be religious, and they will remember God, and they will prefer their faith above anything else. And you will find that the interferences that come from the family members, the wider family, wouldn't happen. Remember, religion and faith is above each and everything else. Sometimes, because we don't know what we are going into, we are asked to make istikhara, to make a prayer before Allah for guidance in whatever you are to carry on, because we don't know whether marrying such a person will be prosperity for us, or there will be no success in marrying such a person. That's why we are required to pray. The first Caliph once time said that the Holy Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam did a great favor to us by giving us a guidance, a guideline, that if we follow it, that inshallah, if you follow it, then the objective of marriage, which is told by the Holy Quran, then it will become a source of peace and comfort. We marry simply to have a relationship which is a source of comfort and peace and happiness for both marrying parents. Remember, the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, you should not look towards the beauty or the money, the wealth, or the family where someone is coming from. You should look at his status as far as his religion is concerned. And we are required to pray fervently before marrying, seeking guidance from Allah. And that if you pray to find such marriage where you find comfort, peace, then by the grace of Allah, such marriages, they go on successfully. But remember, these prayers are not only before marriage, but remember that even within, after marrying, Shaitan, Satan, continues to attack us. Therefore, you also have to continue with the prayers to have a peaceful marriage even after marriage. At another occasion, telling us the importance of istikhara, of seeking guidance before marrying, he says that marriage is a very important issue in one's life. We look for somebody who's come from a known family, someone who is from a very rich family, but the Holy Prophet ﷺ said that you should look for someone who is religious, whether a boy or a girl. And because the virtues and the good virtues are very hard to practice or to find in someone, and we cannot know whether someone is very morally upright. We cannot tell, we can't know, because apparently you can see someone to be very, very good. Apparently someone may look different. But because we don't know the true nature of things, that's why we are required to seek guidance from Allah, to do istikhara before marriage. But because Allah is alimul ghaib, He knows each and everything. Therefore, you should always seek guidance and help from Allah before entering in marriage, before marrying someone. You know that during marriages, we do, when the marriage is being pronounced, one time we are being admonished to be very straightforward and truthful, and you should also look at what you are sending forth for yourselves. So if you are looking for success in your lives, then it is paramount that you look for someone who is God-fearing. During marriage, the verses which are being recited, or when they recite these verses, we are being told to look at the end result of our marriages and the reason why we marry. And the Holy Prophet Muhammad ﷺ has taught us a prayer that Barakallahu laka wa baraka alayka wa jama' baynakuma bil khair wa yajma' baynakuma bil khair. That may Allah bless both of you, that may Allah make both of you stand firm on doing good works, and may Allah join you together in peace and harmony. Then if we continue with this prayer also, then we'll get our marriages blessed. Some people are influenced, under the influences of societies, Pakistani societies or Indian societies. They are stuck in these cultural issues. When God clearly says that once you get in a suitable relationship, then you should seek guidance through prayers. You should make istikhara, and you should give preference to faith and to religion above anything else. For them, they don't consider these at all, but they only consider their family and their tribes or the groups they come from. We should always see that whoever you are marrying is someone who is God-fearing, who is straightforward, and is not such a person who will cause problems for you. What we should be looking for is for blessings and fear of God. So it is paramount and it is very important that you should consider taqwa. And we are also told to find someone who suits you. But also we should not be adamant in this relation. As far as suitability is concerned, Hazrat Masih Maud gave a very good answer. Someone asked that one Ahmadi wants to marry her daughter to someone who is not very suitable, whereas there are some people who are suitable for her. What is your guidance in this? The Prince Messiah said that if you get someone, sometimes it's better to marry outside, but it is not important, it's not faraz. It's better to marry to someone who are suitable with, but it's not necessary. But if you see someone who doesn't suit you, there's no harm in marrying outside your lines of suitability. Some people sometimes, they are so proud about their families. There is one time in the time of the first, the second Caliph says that someone came to the first Caliph and said that I am Sayyid, I am from the family of the Holy Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Help me to find a suitable relationship for my daughter. And he said, I'm ready to give you all the wealth the Holy Prophet ﷺ gave her daughter Fatima. And after hearing this, the girl said that, do you want to marry me? And this was the mentality regarding what the girls come with or what is given during marriage. He said, it says that now sometimes what is given in marriage, people they say that what the girl brought was very, very little. The jahiz was not enough. This is something which is affecting a lot of marriages. That jahiz or whatever the girl comes with should be according to your means, should be within your own means. You should not overemphasize on what you demand before you can marry or before you can give your girl in marriage. Now remember the saying of the Holy Prophet ﷺ, which is narrated by Hazrat Abu Hurairah radiallahu ta'ala anha, where
there are some problems are created there. So Hazrat Khalifatul Masih Awwal said that is your literally the nose is bigger than that, it means your honor is better than the honor of the Holy Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And if in modest dowry there was no insult of the Holy Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, so how it can cause insult to your honor? So sometime it happens that the girls sometime given this taunting that this dowry that you are brought, that is very small. And for these people there is also a lesson, those who give the torture on this basis. And also there is a lesson for the people of who give in the marriage their daughter, that they should give appropriately. But one should not take anything unnecessarily obligatory upon him. Before the istikhara, where the person is seeing this, one has to see that girl. The Holy Prophet ﷺ has mentioned, Hazrat Abu Hurairah relates that he said that I was in the company of the Holy Prophet ﷺ. A person came and he said that he has sent a message to a lady in Ansar, among the Ansar. The Holy Prophet ﷺ asked him that, have you seen her? He said no. He said, the Holy Prophet ﷺ said, first go and see, because sometime in the eyes of the Ansar there is something. You have to see that. So to see the girl before the marriage, to visit them, there is no harm in it. But some of the boys are the members of his family, because of their arrogance and pride, they go to the family of the girl and they say that we have come to see about the proposal. And then, because of their pride, as I said, then they go there. And then the conversation that goes on, that is very strange. Although they have seen the picture, they have won the particulars, and all these things have already been done. But still, and if they find something better worldly wise, they immediately cancel the previous one and go for that one. So this is totally wrong. The majority of the Ahmadi girls, they respect their parents, and the proposals given by the parents, they generally accept that. But in some cases, the people on the boy side, they come and they have seen the picture, they have seen the particulars and the height and everything is known to them. But then just they go on lingering, or they just say something which is emotional torture to the girl. That should not be done. The purpose of marriage that is mentioned in religion, if you act upon that, so then this emotional torture to the girls should not be given, and it should not be there. Nor from the boy side, there should be the expression of arrogance or to play with the sentiments of the others. Hazrat Masih Maud ﷺ, describing the purpose of marriage, he says that the Holy Quran has taught us that you get for marriage in order to have the chastity, and that is the purpose of the marriage, to be chaste, and also to have a pious progeny. And you go for marriage for this, and then you pray to have the good pious progeny, as Allah Almighty says, Musinina gara musafihina, that it should be that your marriage should be for this purpose, so that you can enter into the fort of chastity and purity. And this wording also tells us that the person who does not go for marriage, he is not only liable to get into problems, moral and religious. So according to the Islamic teaching, there are three benefits of the marriage. One is, the first is the ifat, the purity and chastity. The second is the maintenance of the health, and the third is the progeny. So if these three things are kept in mind, so then while settling the matters, the proposals, these problems will not be there. And just looking for the worldly things, one should look for the worldly thing, religious things, and go for marriage. In some families, the disorder and fight is because of this thing, that the girl, when they take her after the marriage, then the husband does not have a separate house, and he is living with his parents. In some cases, there is no way out, because the boy, if he is not having enough money to buy a house, or the boy is still studying, so this is a reason, and this should be known to the girl, that because of this difficulty, it is impossible to have a separate house, and for some time she should be living with the in-laws for some time. But sometime the girl or her parents, because in a haste, they just break the marriages. The marriage was conducted, and very quickly they seek for khula. This is totally wrong. If they cannot stay in the in-laws, then they should tell it very in the beginning, and then they should go for marriage. Because if the situation of the boy is such that he cannot have a separate house, but sometime because some boys, because of their careless attitude, are under the influence of their parents, they live with their parents while they can possibly have their own house. And the excuse is that the parents are old. So therefore it is essential to live with them, while the other parents are also living with the parents. Other children are also living with the parents. And the parents are not of that condition that they can live separate, alone. So it is only the parents, the strong attitude of the parents. And what does Islam say about that? Allah Almighty says in the Holy Quran, Laysa alal ama harajun wala alal araj harajun wala alal mariz harajun wala ala anfusikum an taqulu min buyutikum wa buyuti abaikum wa buyuti an taqulu min buyutikum wa buyuti abaikum wa buyuti ummahatikum. That is to say, for a blind person or a disabled person or on you, it is not, there is no blame that if you eat from your own homes or from your parents, or you eat from the house of your mothers. So explaining this much of the verse, Hazrat Khalifatul Masih Awwal Raziyallahu Ta'ala Anhu has mentioned in a very beautiful way. He has explained the point. He said that in India, the people generally in their homes, they complain that the daughter-in-law and the mother-in-law, they have the fight. So Allah Almighty says that in this verse, Allah Almighty says that the houses should be separate. The house of mother and the married children, they have to have their house separately. If the houses are separate, that is why the permission to have the food from there is there. So except when there is a compulsion, the houses should be separate. And when the separate houses are there, then this fight between the mother-in-law and daughter-in-law, that will not be there. And in that case, both the boy and the girl, they will have to realize their responsibility. I would like to say here that some people, before the marriage of their daughter, they ask the father whether that young man has got the house or not, and how much is the value of that, and this and that. And then they, if this is not acceptable, then they go for marriage. This is also very objectionable, very wrong. So worldly greed should not be there. The people of the parents of the daughter, they should just look for the religious side. And houses, they are of course arranged later on. The main thing is the mutual love and affection. And I get complaint from several countries that some of the missionaries who get married, so they don't. Some of the people do not want to give their daughters in marriage to these newly qualified missionaries because they are not wealthy. And Allah Almighty gives the advice to the men that in the matters of women, very quickly, in haste, they should not decide, and no wrong attitude should be done to them, and don't take anything ill if they do so. And Allah Almighty mentioning these things, وَعَاشِرُوهُنَّ بِالْمَعْرُوفِ فَإِنْ كَرِهْتُمُوهُنَّ فَعَسَىٰ أَن تَكْرَهُوا شَيْئًا وَيَجْعَلْ اللَّهُ فِيهِ خَيْرًا كَثِيرًا. And you behave very nicely, give good treatment to them, live in a very amicable way. And if you dislike them for some reason, so it is quite possible that you may dislike something. It is quite possible that you dislike something, and Allah Almighty puts great blessing in that. So Hazrat Khalifatul Masih Awwal Raziyallahu Ta'ala Anhu explains, he says that, my dear ones, you see that if you don't like anything in your wife, so then always treat her better. Allah Almighty may create something good in her, and maybe that apparently something is good and you dislike it. So those husbands, who are in haste in leaving their wives, or they do not go for good treatment, or they do not take care of the sentiments of the wives, or on certain things they dislike from the wife, and then they adopt a wrong attitude towards them. So this is the advice for them, that with the wives, always treat them nicely, because those things which in your view may be unpleasant things, regarding that, don't be in a hurry to decide something on that basis, because apparently that unpleasant thing, in that maybe it is quite possible there is something hidden in that, something good is hidden in that, and because of haste, if you go for decision, that you will be deprived from that goodness which is there. So Allah Almighty has mentioned this point of nice treatment to the wives in different ways, and the men should always keep all these points. And then the second marriage of the man, the second, because of that so many problems are coming, and there is a fight and difficulty in the homes, and the men should realize that if the permission of second marriage is there, so then there are certain conditions, and if there is a genuine need and requirement, and it should not that they have got their children, they have got their home, and under the influence of this society, or maybe they have been given some affluence, so just as a joy, they go for second marriage, and sometime their relationship or friendship is with them, so they should go for marriage. Hazrat Masih Maud ﷺ has given a detailed guidance in this matter. He said, the Promised Messiah said, that the law of Allah, it should not be used or taken against the will of Allah Almighty, nor one should benefit from that only to satisfy his carnal desires. If selfish desires are there, carnal desires are there, so you ignore the laws of Allah and just go for that, that is not right. Doing that is a sin. Allah Almighty says repeatedly that you should not be obsessed by the sexual desire, but there should be righteousness in all these things. And he says that most of the people, they take the benefit of the Sharia, and they, because of their sexual needs and desires, they go for the marriage. And then the other people say that the Muslims, they have got nothing else to do except to have more than one wife. This is wrong to make the religion as a shelter, as a protection for that. You leave the old wives and you get married to the new ladies. And he said that the people would object to that, and then they would be right that the Muslim men are going for second marriage without any justification. But if the sexual desires are there in the heart of the person, that is sin, and the benefit from the worldly gains and benefits, that should be very less. That should be very less. فَلْيَزْهَكُوا وَلْيَبْكُوا كَثِيرًا. That you laugh a little bit and you should be weeping and crying more. But the benefit, the worldly benefit and enjoyment, if is more, and the desires are more, and he is busy among his wives, so at what time he will be able to cry before Allah Almighty? And this is also the other absurdities. When a person is obsessed with that, he finds no time to cry to Allah. And in support of all these things, those people who do all these things and they go away from the real intention of Allah Almighty has permitted certain things, no doubt, but it does not mean that one should spend the whole life into that. Allah Almighty says about the human beings, that the whole night, they spend the whole night in the prostration and prayer. So those persons who are completely lost in worldly benefits the whole day, so how can he find time to spend the time or night time in prayer? So a person who goes for that, the Holy Prophet ﷺ had 9 wives, but the whole night he used to spend in prayer. And he said, remember it very well, that Allah Almighty desires that these sexual desires should not overpower you. And in order to perfect your righteousness, then you can go for the maintenance of your righteousness. If you want to have, then you can go for that. It is permissible. But this point has to be analyzed, that those people who have the desire for the second marriage, that is it for the sake of righteousness, or is it just for the carnal desires? And then he said that it should be understood very well that if a person, because of the carnal desire, he goes for more than one marriages, and every day that dawns upon him, and every night that comes upon him, if he does not spend the life laughing more and weeping less, so then he should remember that one day he has to go to God. And if a man wants to get married for the second marriage for justified reason, then people should not object to that one. A person has the right, and you should pray that Allah Almighty should not put you into this condition. As regarding the men, he said that the marriage should not be just to satisfy one's selfish desire, sexual desire. And he says that there are certain ladies who are also having something. They look at the subject of more than one marriage of men as something unlawful and very bad. And they should remember that the Sharia of Allah Almighty has got the remedies of all problems. So if this institution of the more marriages had not been there in the religion of Islam, then it would have been something problem for men, and there was no solution of that. For example, if the person gets mad or gets into such a marriage which makes a person incapacitated, or any other need may be there, or the lady is worthy of mercy, but she is not capable of, and in that case it is injustice for a man that he should not be permitted for the second marriage. So Allah Almighty, considering all these possible occasions and situations, Allah Almighty has given this permission. And in case of difficulties, that if the man is incapacitated, then they should seek the khula, which is the other word of divorce. They can get separation. And the Sharia of Allah Almighty is like a chemist shop, that in which, but the worldly medicine, if the medicine is not available for all the problems, that shop cannot work on. And so there are situations where the man is compelled for the second marriage. So then what is the need of that Sharia where there is no solution of this situation? Look in Injil regarding the divorce, only the subject of adultery is mentioned there. And other situations which create a great enmity between them, they are not at all mentioned. And further explaining, he says that to the ladies, that the book that has been given to you, that is not like Injil. And in that book, as the rights of the men are safeguarded, so are the rights of the ladies. If the lady is angry upon the second marriage of the man, then she can get separation. And Allah Almighty knew that what sort of situations are going to come. Allah Almighty has mentioned all these things so that the Sharia should not be incomplete. So, oh ye ladies, so on this intention that if they want to go for second marriage, don't complain with the men, and you pray that Allah Almighty should protect you from trial and from difficulty. That prayer is permissible, and that they should do. And they should not be falling into any difficulty or trial. So no doubt that person is extremely worthy of condemnation, who gets married to two but does not maintain the justice. Everyone will be questioned about whatever they do. If you become pious in the sight of Allah, so then your husband will also be made righteous. And if Allah Almighty, for some purposes, Allah Almighty has permisses the polygamy. So, but the law of qaza, the law of Allah Almighty is open. If this thing is unacceptable, then you benefit from that law which Allah Almighty has given, because this law of God is a part of the religious teaching. And what is the law of nature is the prayer, that you pray that Allah Almighty may remove this idea of the second marriage from the heart of that person. Although the permission is there, but you pray, and you pray so much which comes from the heart, it may be that Allah Almighty accept that prayer, and the very thought of the second marriage can taken away from the heart of that husband, and there is no occasion of the second marriage. So Allah Almighty, Allah enable all the members of the Jamaat, men and women, they enable them that they should resolve their matrimonial issues according to the teaching of Islam, and instead of their selfish desire, they should be dedicated to the righteousness, and the fear of Allah Almighty and righteousness should always be kept in mind. And similarly, regarding the new proposals, whatever the problems are there, Allah Almighty solve these problems and enable the boys and the girls to have this understanding that the marriage is not for the worldly needs and requirements. It is not for that purpose. Rather, this is to prefer the religion over the world, and also to have the children following the path of religion, and in order to produce the pious generation, so that the future generations are protected and they are serving the cause of Islam, and also they become the recipient of the blessings of Allah Almighty. After the prayers, I am going to lead, there are 2 janazas which are here, and there are 2 in absentia. The first one is Mukarram Muhammad Nawaz Momin Sahib, who was dedicated of life, 85-year-old. He passed away in Germany. Inna lillahi wa inna ilaihi rajiun. His father was Hazrat Momin Ji, the companion of the promised Messiah. He was son-in-law. His father did the Bai'at in 1922 at the hand of Hazrat Muslim Maud. His children, his father's children used to die at young age. They taunted the non-Ahmadis that because we have become Ahmadi, therefore the children die. So therefore, at the birth of this son, his father promised that if he lives on, that I will dedicate him for the service of religion. So then, by the grace of Allah, and he and also the 4 other children, they survived and they had long life. His father dedicated him from the childhood. In 1959, he completed the education from Jamia, and then he spent the whole life in the service in Darul Qaza, Wasiyat office. He performed the duties. In 1969, he went to Germany, and also in various positions he served. He was very dedicated to the Tabligh, preaching, very regular in prayer, very steadfast, patient, and very devout and pious man. He loved the Holy Quran, and he used to recite in a melodious voice and also teach. He was a Musi. 1 son and 1 daughter has been left behind. The second janaza is of from here, London, Sayyid Rafiq Ahmad Safir Sahib. He was president of Surbiton Jamaat. 28 February, at the age of 61, he passed away in Allah wa inna ilaihi rajiun. His father, Dr. Safiruddin Kumasi in Ghana, he was the first principal of the Ahmadiyya school there. This Rafiq Sahib was born in London, and from the very childhood he was dedicated in he was secretary Atfal and various Jamaat duties, and also in Ansarullah Majlis he was Qaid Sayyid Jismani. As Qaid Amumi he also performed the duties. He was president of Surbiton Jamaat before his death. He was a devotion with the Jamaat, regular in prayer, and a very pious, gentle, and very pious and devout person. He was a Musi, and apart from the mother, he has left behind 2 sons and 2 daughters. his wife writes that he was a very mild nature, and he used to love children and also advise them to forgo the prayers and lead them the prayer from the day of marriage to till the end. He was busy in Jamaat works. He used to solve the problems and the financial issues as well. He was very pious, very good mannered. The acting president writes that one good thing that regarding the Khutbah Jummah, he would ask the questions from the children and he used to give the prizes for the right answer. So that encouraged the children to listen to Khutbah, and he was very interested in Jamaat affairs. There are these two janazas are here, and there are two in absentia. And one is Dr. Mirza Laik Ahmad Sahib, Sahibzada Mirza Hafiz Ahmad Sahib's son. He was a grandson of Hazrat Muslim Maud. On 28th of February, Tahir Heart Institute, he passed away. Inna lillahi wa inna ilaihi raji'un. His mother is alive. Allah Almighty enable her to endure this loss. He got the education up to FSC in Rabwa, and then from Multan Medical College he did MBBS, and he did his practice in Rabwa. He taking care of the poor people, and many poor people have written that he was always taking care of us, and he was very kind. Rather, one day in the week he had kept it aside for the treatment of the poor people, and he used to treat them without any cost, without free. And he got married to Faiza Sahiba, and there are two sons. And then he got married to the daughter of Hazrat Khalifat Masih Salis. Allah Almighty have mercy and forgiveness upon him. The second janaza in absentia is Mukarram Aminullah Khan Salik Sahib, former missionary. 28th February, he passed away in America. Inna lillahi wa inna ilaihi raji'un. He was in America, Liberia, and England. He served as a missionary. In 1936, Abdul Majid Khan Sahib of Irwal. He was the father, and he was born in that family. And from the childhood he was dedicated. Hazrat Khalifat Masih Sani, he dedicated his son. And the mother was very happy about that. Abdul Majid Khan Sahib, in that at the instruction of Hazrat Khalifat Masih Salis, dedicated. And then he told that I dedicated your son for the service of religion. And in 1945, he presented his application for Waqf dedication and then got admission in Jamia. In 1905, he passed a Maulvi Fazil examination in 57, and he did the Shahid and then did his BA. And the first the appointment, 58, he was appointed in February 1960. 63, he was in America. And after 66, He was in Daftar Emanat for some time. In 69, he went to Liberia to serve there as missionary. The first appointment was in 60 when he was 30 years old. Very dedicated missionary, and he used to find the opportunity through the newspaper and radios. Very energetic. In Liberia, President Tubman used to ask him for every monthly meeting and asked him to lead the prayer. And when Hazrat Khalifat Masih Salis visited Liberia, so the president arranged a dinner in honor of Hazrat Khalifat Masih Salis and said about Aminullah Khan Salik. And the President Tubman said that he is very forceful. Huzur said in reply, but he is forceful but without using any force. And then he was appointed in England, and for some years he got the retirement. His marriage was to Bushra Shah Sahiba, son of Iqbal Shah Sahib, who was Dr. Walayat Shah Sahib, companion of the Promised Messiah. She was the granddaughter of that companion. Apa Tahira, he was the elder brother of Apa Tahira Siddiqa Sahiba. He has got one son and one daughter. Allah Almighty have mercy upon him and forgive him, and Allah Almighty exalt their status. After the prayers, as I said, I will be leading their Namaz-e-Janaza, the funeral prayer.